Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true.
One of 4 gunmen held following bar robbery shootout in St. Elizabeth. One of 4 alleged gunmen was taken into custody following a bar robbery and shootout with police in Little St. Elizabeth on Sunday night. A police source told reporters that shortly after 7 p.m., 4 armed men held up a bar in the community and stole several items. It is reported that a police team, which was on patrol in the area, was shot at by the gunmen. The police reported a return gunfire and a chase ensued. A firearm and 3 rounds were seized. 1 suspect is in custody. The items that were robbed were also recovered after the incident, the source told reporters. A video of the incident, which has gone viral on social media, showed the 3 men storming into the bar and the bartender fleeing. The men then grabbed items from the bar before the police team approached the area from 3rd Street. 3 of the men escaped while their crony was arrested. Police still trying to ascertain identity of Portmore murder victim. The St. Catherine South Police are still trying to ascertain the identity of a man who was killed during an attack by a gunman on Monday, in which 3 others were also injured. About 2:10 p.m., the 4 people reportedly at a premises along Olidier Drive in Brayton in Portmore, St. Catherine, and they were approached by 3 armed men. The men fired shots, hitting all 4. They were taken to hospital where the unidentified man died after gunshot injuries. The other 3 persons were admitted. 5th person charged in the heart thrust fraud case. A 5th person has been arrested and charged by the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency MOCA in relation to the alleged $8 million fraud case at the Heart NSTA Trust. 36-year-old Ricardo Golden was picked up yesterday at the Norman Manor International Airport in Kingston as he attempted to board a flight. MOCA says Golden, a key suspect in the case, failed to report to the agency for questioning as instructed and was intercepted at the airport. Golden was arrested with receiving stolen property, conspiracy to defraud, and money laundering and is scheduled to appear in the court later this week. The other persons charged in the case are Anna K. Finn Tyrrell and her husband, Michael Tyrrell, former employees at the Heart, as well as Tasha Buchanan and Shamar Bell, all of whom are presently before the court. It is being alleged that all 5 were part of a conspiracy to fraudulently move money from the agency to the accounts of persons outside the entity. MOCA is encouraging the public to use its tip hotline 888-662-2847 to report instances of corruption and organized crime. Double murder rocks Montego Bay. Based on preliminary investigations, the St. James Police believe that robbery and extortion were the motives for Monday's murder of a male food vendor and an exotic dancer whose bodies were found on a bed in a small room inside the People's Arcade in Montego Bay. The deceased duo has been identified as 30-year-old Ricardo Green, a fast food vendor of a Glendevon address, and 24-year-old Vanessa Hopkins, an exotic dancer and vendor of a St. Anne address. Superintendent Aaron Samuels, the police officer in charge of the operations in St. James, said the double killing is the latest in the ongoing surge of lawlessness, which has been a long-standing feature at the popular arcade. We are a bit tired as law enforcement officers with this arcade, being that it is extremely hard to police despite all our efforts, Samuels told reporters. We have arrested persons inside this arcade for illegal possession of firearm. We have seized illegal weapons. Even this gentleman who was killed was arrested by members of our team last week in a targeted operation where he was found in the company of a minor. Howard Green, the father of the deceased man, described his son as unruly but a dedicated father to his 6 children. Me talked to him last night and he was supposed to come check me, but me never get a chance to see him, said the distraught father. Him used to dey with me dey, but because him not listen to me, him have to go leave the house. According to one vendor of the arcade, Green and Hopkins were last seen alive about 11 p.m. on Sunday, partying at another location in Montego Bay. He said Green had over $200,000 in his possession, which he said was sent to him by his mother who lives overseas. He's a good youth. Last night me see him and the chick a floss and him a show a whole sash of money, which him say him mother send come give him, said the vendor. Enough man warn him, say he was not doing a good thing because them have a gang of youth a carry out extortion at the arcade. Everybody feels say them a go up on him page in the night. People in the vicinity reported they heard gunshots being fired inside the arcade about 2:30 a.m., but never made checks. Sometime later, a friend went to the room occupied by Green and found him and Hopkins lying face down on a bed with gunshot wounds to the back of their heads. Green, who was clad only in his underpants, had his hands bound and an electric cord, while Hopkins was discovered in the nude. The police were alerted and the scene processed, and the bodies were moved to the morgue. The killing brings to 56 the number of people murdered in St. James since the start of the year. Indicom probe shooting at Montague's house. The Independent Commission of Investigations, Indicom, has launched a probe into an incident in which a police constable reportedly accidentally discharged a weapon at the house of Member of Parliament Robert Montague in Orcabessa, St. Mary. The incident reportedly occurred at about 9 a.m. on Monday, while two constables were at Robert Montague's home carrying out close protection duties. It is understood that a gun accidentally discharged after one of the cops handed his weapon to his colleague to hold while he went to relieve himself. There were no reports of injuries in the incident. It is still unclear whether Montague, who is the MP for St. Mary Western, was at the house at the time of the incident. MOH still working to settle minimum wage adjustments for security guards. Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dunstan Bryan, says his ministry and regional health authorities have settled with about 50% of security firms in terms of minimum wage negotiations. Some security guards working with companies that receive contracts from ministries, departments, and agencies have complained that since the minimum wage was adjusted in 2022, their wages have not changed. Bryan said regional authorities are still in negotiations with security firms regarding adjustment in contract sum of reflected increase in the minimum wage. He said the negotiations are expected to be completed by the end of June. In March, the government announced an increase in the national minimum wage, moving the rate from $9,000 per 40-hour work to $13,000. The increase takes effect on June 1. At the same time, the minimum wage for industrial security guards moves from $10,500 per week to $14,000. During yesterday's meeting at the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament Chairman, Julian Robinson wanted to know whether adjustments have been made to deal with the 2022 minimum wage increase. Bryan told the committee that at the end of the negotiations, his ministry will make a submission to the Ministry of Finance for the additional funds to be included in the supplementary estimates. The budget was settled in November of last year when a lot of these parameters were not known, he stated. Phillips wants dedicated fund for road repairs. Opposition spokesperson on Transport and Works, Michael Phillips, says the government needs to move to implement a specific mechanism to fund road repairs across Jamaica. How can the Ministry of Finance continually boast about budget supers and growth, yet when asked about road maintenance, the refrain is, "We just don't have the funds"? You will never have the funds required if we are only to finance our road maintenance for the consolidatory fund alone. A dedicated road maintenance fund is our best option to get us out of the downward spiral, said Phillips, who is a Member of Parliament for Northwestern Manchester. He was making his contribution to the sectoral debate in the House of Representatives yesterday. Funding for the Road Maintenance Fund, which was established by the Road Maintenance Fund Act of 2002, was previously provided by the Inland Revenue Department on a monthly basis, calculated at a one-third of the total collection of Jamaica's motor vehicles fees. However, in November 2017, Prime Minister Andrew Holness spirited a bill in Parliament to abolish the Road Maintenance Fund and transfer its funds to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation by March 2018. Phillips demanded to know if any of the funds from the $40 billion road maintenance project announced by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark during his budget presentation will be spent on the interior Perkle Road. Phillips charged that Jamaicans need a more productive and efficient transport system, arguing that the Jamaican Urban Transit Company requires 400 additional buses over the next 3 years. He pointed out that while 200 electric buses are to be purchased over the next 2 years, that procurement will not be adequate to meet the needs of the commuting public. We already have incidents of stoning, and these buses are made almost entirely of glass, since they are just light. There is also our road network. Must it also be hilly and may pose a difficulty? We fully support the introduction of the e-buses, but we must be careful with the specs, said Phillips.
Please remember to subscribe, like, share,